Hey guys, welcome to the first video in the Hammer Editor tutorial series. In this video I'm hoping to instruct everyone on basic level design concepts, and in this case it'll be creating your very own room. It's going to be really exciting. Nothing too fancy right now, but I hope the basics will help you further on in your level editing careers. So let's just dive right into it. Let's open up Steam. I've got the Steam window open right now. Go to the Tools tab at the top, right here. Scroll down until you see Source SDK. Double click that. A window is going to open up. This is the SDK's tool interface. In this case, we're just dealing with a Hammer World Editor, so you can forget everything else. Double click. And here's the Hammer interface. So far, it's pretty empty. We haven't done anything with it yet, so let's go File, New. File, New. Okay, here is the workspace. We've got 4 windows, a camera window, top view, side view, and front view. Also, along the left-hand side, we've got our tool menu system here. Some of the basics, selection tool, some of the camera tools, block tools. Let's go to the block tool on the left-hand side of the toolbar. It's this one right here. Left-click, go to the top right window. Left click and drag across the screen. This is essentially creating a block. To finalize the block, click enter. As you can see in our camera window over here, we now have more or less a solid brush. Brush and block, those are terms that it can be sort of used interchangeably. You'll notice that I'm also moving the camera around. There are various ways to do this. I find the easiest way for me to do this is to use the WASD keys in conjunction with the arrow keys. So clicking A and holding will move the camera left, D will move it right, W forward, S back. The arrow keys, they pan the camera left, right, up, down. Use a combination of these and you will be able to fly around your level very easily. It can take a while to get used to this, but please, I strongly suggest you get used to this system. Okay, step 2. Let's take our selection tool at the very top. Left click, click on the brush in the camera window. It'll now become highlighted, and you can see that we've got 4 boxes on either corner. This means you can basically left click and manipulate the brush however you'd like. In this case, I'm going to make it a bit smaller. And you can come over here, and on the side view, you can make this thicker. If you notice, we can go down. Can make it thinner. I'm just going to leave it at the default for now. So let's start making the walls for our room. Let's go over to the block tool. Again, left click. This time we're going to come down to the bottom right window as a side view. Again, left click and drag. Here's our wall. Press enter to finalize it. And it's now in our game space. Go up to the selection tool. Make sure it's selected. Now come back down to the window on the bottom right. You will see if you go into the center of the brush, we've got this multi-arrow icon. This will allow us to move the brush in any direction we want. So in this case, we're going to bring it over to the right and down. So now we've got a wall, which is up on one side. If you need more detail, in this case, it may be difficult to see what exactly you're looking at. Go to the window, in this case, bottom right. Use your mouse wheel and scroll in. Keep going. As you can see, so if you have trouble seeing what's on the screen, you may not realize that you're not quite touching up against either the ceiling or the floor. Zoom in, you get a better view of what's going on. Let's bring that back down. Now I could do this for the same wall on the other side, but I don't want to draw out a new one. It's a bit of a waste of time, and I just don't want to do that. So back to the selection tool, make sure we've got this highlighted. Now let's go Control C. This is going to copy the brush. You can also go to Edit, Copy, and put your cursor over in the camera window, roughly where you'd like the brush to be pasted in. Press Control V. The brush is going to move over to this space. It didn't align correctly, doesn't usually, but it put it close enough that we can manipulate it over in our window. Again, move the brush into place. 2 walls up. Again, I'm not going to draw another brush in this case. I'm just going to copy the ones we have to make the final walls. Control C, cursor down here, Control V. Now here's a problem we're running into. The brush is not on the right angle or axis, so we're going to have to make some changes. In this case, we can rotate the brush into place. What you want to do is highlight the brush, again, selection tool, make sure it's selected. Go to the Tools menu at the top, go down to the word Transform, left click, a small window will appear. In this case, we can rotate, scale, or move. We want to go to the Z axis here, highlight that. Let's click, let's type in 90. This is going to basically give us a 90-degree turn. Okay, and there we go. The brush is now shifted 90 degrees. Again, be very careful. If you notice, there is a gap here. Zoom in on your windows. Let's tighten that up. And then if you want to fill in the rest of the space, just go to the side of the brush, get that arrow, and let's pull it across. Boom. Okay, it's closed. Let's now copy the same brush that we just moved, and let's paste it over here. Zoom in on the window, move into place. Okay, we now have a basic room with no roof or ceiling, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the roof on, come back in a couple minutes, and start up the video inside your newly developed window. Hey guys, back from a little gin and tonic break. That was absolutely delicious. But let's get back on track here. So a couple things. I've put a roof on our room here. So we got a ceiling, floor, and 4 walls. Something else you may have noticed is it's gotten smaller. In this case, it was getting a little unwieldy being that big, so I thought I'd bring it down in size. So the next phase in the tutorial is the texturing tutorial. If you've noticed, we've got some sort of weird advertisement, something about pills. It's a stock texture that is automatically applied to the brush. So we want to change that. So go over to the middle of the toolbar on the left. Let's hit the toggle texture application tool, left click, window is going to come up. Let's go down to the browse window, and here it is. This is the texture browser window. It's got a filter. You can search for various things like, let's say, concrete, back to brick, various things, metal, anything you want. It's got some search filters on there. So in this case, I'm going to take brick, double left click brick. Okay. Now let's go move this window out of the way. Go to a surface in the camera view. In this case, it's going to be the far wall, and right click. Now right click on the other walls. Let's turn the camera around. Remember to use those keys in conjunction. Okay, so we've got a brick texture applied to just the surfaces that we're looking at. Textures will be applied to, in this case, with this tool, only to the surface that you are looking at, not everything. So if we go outside, if you notice there's still that texture, go inside the room, it's just to that face. So let's browse again. Let's find concrete. Pulls it up. Let's just take any old concrete. Let's go this one right here, double click, right click on the floor. I'll give it the ceiling concrete anyway, just so we have some nice contrast. If you'd like to change textures on the fly, what you can do is, for instance, if I want to make this wall over here, or even here, a concrete texture, go to where the concrete texture is available, and you left click. It's now selected. Notice it's changed here. Then go to the wall and right click. Conversely, you can click on brick, left click, and then right click to reapply. Okay, so now let's talk about the texture editor window. So this window right here, it's got a couple options. We've got texture scale, we've got texture shift, light map scale, some rotation, and justification. A lot of these things you're not going to have to worry about. Probably in the basic tutorial, the most you'd ever really want to use is going to be the scale and the texture shift. So let's just, I'll show you a couple examples. Let's zoom in on this wall. If you notice in the middle of the texture, we've got this sort of thicker white line of grout. So let's left click, highlight that, and let's go to our texture shift. Let's go to the Y, and if you noticed, as I'm clicking down here and putting in negative values, the texture is shifting down. This is useful if you're trying to add a bit of detail, and or in this case we don't really have to do a whole lot, but if you're trying to join certain textures together in awkward angles, shifting the texture can be quite helpful. So I'm just going to move it around just to show you. Yeah, it can go down. You can highlight the box. Let's put in 90. It's going to go up. So again, you can do that on the X and Y axis. Go left, right, up, down. The scale, you can change the texture scale. I'd recommend leaving it at the default, which is 0.25. So I'm going to show you what happens if we increase it. That's 3.5 and 3.5. You notice it's expanding the texture. It's basically zooming in on the texture. In this case, we don't want that. I don't know when you'd ever really want that. It makes things blurry and you lose detail. So let's bring it back down to 0.25. And in some cases, you may want even more detail on smaller objects, smaller brushes. So you can also bring it down. So it's really a matter of preference and scale, depending on the scale you're working on. So as I said, though, preferably just work in 0.25. You can also rotate the texture if you really need to. You can come over here, and if you notice, as I click up, we're at 12 degrees, 13, 15, 25, and more. So it shifts the texture, depending on, let's say you had a brush on an angle, for example. So in this case it's not, so we'll just leave it at 0. And that's about it. In terms of the other tools, the justify tools, the align, we really don't need to look at those. They're a little more advanced and they're not necessary for now. So we've got our room. It's scaled to the right size. We've got textures, and when we come back, I'm going to show you how to place lights and a spawning location within this room.